Thank you. Thank you very much. And I might take the liberty to broaden that scope a little bit more than just the CAP 21. First of all, farmers are necessary for society to handle both all the climate challenges that we have, but also to safeguard and secure food supply and food security. And I think the theme of my intervention here could also be, has the Commission provided farmers with the tools so they can actually fulfill both those objectives? And I might make the distinction between the part of the Commission that Mr. Butcher is working with, which we have a very good collaboration with, and on the other side, the political part of the European Commission, which we may not always agree with. So there's quite a difference there. But don't get me wrong, farmers are necessary for society and for food security and also for sustainability. There's no way around that. The CAP reform that is now hitting the farmers in Europe here 1st of January 2023, the process of forming that is actually history. And I don't think it's necessary to go into details. The very short conclusion about it is that there are more flexibility for member states and more flexibility for farmers. There are higher targets and higher demands on farmers, but there's also less money in the system. So you could ask the question if the Commission actually provides or enable for farmers to do what they have to do. I think the profitability with the farmers are actually keeping them down and restricting the investments that we have to do to increase efficiency in the food production. But the CAP has a long history. It goes back 60 years, and you often hear a lot of criticism around the common agriculture policy. From farmers, they think that it's not enough money in it and there's too much obligations. You hear it from politicians. They think it's too expensive, take up too much of the European budget. And we hear it from the NGOs, especially from the environmental NGOs, that the CAP is not green enough. I think it's fair to once in a while remind yourself about what's the basic objectives with the common agriculture policy and what have we achieved with it. I think there are, if you look outside Europe in the world, there are two basic principles for an agriculture policy. There is the one that Switzerland and Japan and Norway have, which is quite protective to the domestic market. It has high targets, but also gives farmers a possibility to actually meet consumers' expectations on high quality food, high environmental concern and sustainability measures, and also respect consumers' different demand for different types of food. I think that policy ticks all these boxes, but you can question if it makes food affordable. The other principle is the free trade, market-based way of producing food that we see in North America and South America that makes farmers extremely productive and efficient. But it also disconnects farmers from the connection to the consumers. Farmers are seen as commodity producers, and there's no room in these type of agriculture policies for extra environmental measures or sustainability measures. So I think actually the European way of the common agriculture policy is taking the best of both these and form it into a policy where we can prove that we have increased productivity in agriculture. It ensures at least a fair standard of living for farmers, even if we know that the average income for farmers in the European Union is lower than the average income in the rest of society. It stabilizes markets and it guarantees food security. 60 years ago when the CAP was introduced, Europe was an importer of food. Now we are an exporter. But at the same time as we have increased production and made Europe to a supplier to the rest of the world, we can also meet consumers' demand for environmental friendly produced products, sustainably friendly produced products, high animal welfare, low use of antibiotics. I know that Sweden, inside the European Union, is the country with the lowest use of antibiotics in the animal production. And I know if we compare to Europe that Norway is a little bit better than Sweden, but it's an inch of improvement. So. But we have something to learn from you here. So. But it also ensures affordable prices for food for consumers. And so I think the cap this far is actually, even if you hear all this criticism around, the cap is a success. But if we look at the future and what we see, the proposed measures from the Commission that comes out in the farm to fork strategy, I think you could raise the question if the political side of the Commission actually have recognized that the world has changed. We see a lot of those measures proposed that came from the Commission in early 2020 that will be contradictory to the goal of also securing food security, both for the people of Europe, but also for the people outside Europe. The farm to fork includes 50% reduction in plant protection products, 20% reduction of fertilizer, with the goal of reducing nutrient leakage with 50%. Putting 25% of the agricultural land into organic production, taking 10% of the European farmland out of production for biodiversity measures. And all these, we have asked the Commission for impact assessments on what the consequences will be on this. First of all, we heard nothing from the Commission when it comes to impact assessments, so we had to rely of these impact assessments from other sources. USDA made one, the University of Kiel in Germany made one, the Wageningen University in the Netherlands made one, and finally we got one from the Joint Research Center from the European Commission. All those impact assessments, they point in the same direction, that if you introduce those measures, that production will go down between 10 and 20% in Europe, prices will go up with 20 to 40%. And those impact assessments, they ended there. But if we look at what's happening to our society now, I think what we see now is a reality check of what will be the consequences of those measures. It's for different reasons now, but the outcome and the result of it will be the same. Now we see a decrease in production and we see higher prices because of what we all know what's happening in the world. First, the inflation on costs coming out of the pandemic and the disturbance of supply chain that we saw there, but also now the effect of the war in Ukraine. And I think it's quite obvious that what we see, what's impacting our society now with high inflation, economy going into recession, higher interest rates, is a reality check of what will be the impact of the farm to fork measures. And we need to see different measures from the Commission that allows the European farmers to do what needs to be done, both for environmental and sustainability, but at the same time as we can keep on producing and supplying both the European population but also consumers outside of Europe with food. So we need different measures. For example, we need measures that we can do good for biodiversity at the same time as we produce on that land, not taking land out of production. From a farmer's perspective and from the LRF and Copa Cochica in Brussels, we don't think that the political side of the Commission has actually recognized that the world has changed and their old measures, they won't work in the new environment that we work in. So I think to sum this up, it goes both into that farmers need to do a lot of investments for make the food production more sustainable, especially on mitigating climate change. They need the financial capability to do those investments and we need probably a different business model in the food chain. Farmers, if you look at it in Europe, for every euro that the consumer spends, 9 cents goes back to the farmer. The rest stops in the chain from the farmer to the consumers. The retailers, first of all, the government takes a bit of that in tax, but the retailers have a very high margin, very high compared to the risk they're taking in their business, compared to the risk that farmers take in their business and the margins of farmers. So we need a different model that we can get those money from the consumers direct to the farmer. We know that fertilizer produced without any impact on, or fossil-free fertilizer will be twice the price. If we can put that price to the consumer without every part of the chain putting on their margins, it won't be that much more expensive for consumers. But if everyone in that chain, the processing industry and the retailers and the government should take their share out of it, the price will probably be too high. So we need to see different measures. I heard the former president of the World Farmers Organization, he once said that farmers need peace, but peace also need farmers. I think that's a very good conclusion. So thank you very much.